The tray slipped from Rosa Zimmerman's hands exactly 3 seconds before her knees buckled, sending crystal glasses of crimson liquid crashing across the marble floor of the Obsidian Hall's most exclusive dining room. Rosa felt the world tilt sideways as darkness crowded her vision, the last thing she registered being the horrified gasp of her manager and the blur of white hair and pale skin rising from the table she'd been serving. Then, nothing. When consciousness returned, it came slowly, like surfacing from deep water. Rosa's eyes fluttered open to find herself cradled in arms that felt impossibly strong, yet gentle, the scent of night-blooming jasmine and something ancient filling her senses. She blinked up into a face that belonged in a painting, all sharp, elegant lines and otherworldly beauty, framed by hair so pale it seemed to glow in the restaurant's dim lighting. "Do not move," a voice like velvet and steel commanded softly. Red eyes, actual red eyes, gazed down at her with an intensity that should have terrified her, but somehow didn't. "You are with child and severely malnourished. How long since you have eaten properly?" Rosa tried to speak, but her throat felt like sandpaper. Before she could form words, her manager, Mr. Peterson, rushed over, his face flushed with panic and anger. "I'm so sorry, Your Majesty," Peterson stammered, reaching for Rosa. "She'll be fired immediately for this disruption. Please, let me remove her so you can continue your meal in peace." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. The white-haired man holding Rosa didn't raise his voice, but the authority in his tone made Peterson freeze mid-reach. "You will do no such thing." Each word was precisely enunciated, carrying weight that made even the other diners at nearby tables fall silent. This woman collapsed from exhaustion and hunger while carrying a child. You work her in this condition? You would punish her for a medical crisis caused by your negligence? Peterson's face went from red to white. She never complained. She always showed up for her shifts. Because she needed the money, you fool. The man stood with Rosa still in his arms as though she weighed nothing at all. He was tall, well over 6 feet, dressed in a black suit that probably cost more than Rosa made in 6 months. "I am taking her to receive proper medical attention. You will hold her position and ensure she receives full pay for the time she is recovering. Furthermore, you will review your labor practices immediately. Any pregnant employee will receive appropriate accommodations, or I will ensure this establishment loses its license to operate." "Your Majesty, I don't think you can—" The red eyes fixed on Peterson with a look that made the manager take 3 steps backward. "I am Konstantinos Draven, King of the Northeastern Territories. I can do whatever I wish. Would you like to test that claim?" Rosa had heard of Konstantinos Draven, of course. Everyone who lived in the city knew about the vampire king who ruled from the shadows, whose word was law in the supernatural community, and who held enough influence in human politics to make governments nervous. She just never imagined she'd be held in his arms while he terrified her boss. "No, Your Majesty," Peterson whispered. "Then we understand each other." Konstantinos looked down at Rosa, his expression softening slightly. "Can you tell me your name?" "Rosa," she managed, her voice weak. "Rosa Zimmerman. Rosa." He said her name like it meant something, like it mattered. "I'm going to take you somewhere safe where you can be examined by a proper physician. Do I have your permission?" The fact that he asked, that this creature of immense power actually requested her consent, made something in Rosa's chest tighten. She nodded. Konstantinos moved toward the exit with fluid grace, carrying Rosa as though she were precious cargo. The other diners, a mix of vampires and wealthy humans, parted like water before him. Rosa caught glimpses of their faces, some shocked, others intrigued, all respectful. Outside the restaurant, a black car that looked like it cost more than Rosa's entire apartment building waited at the curb. A driver in formal attire opened the rear door immediately, his expression carefully neutral, even as his eyes widened slightly at the sight of his king carrying an unconscious waitress. "To the estate, Dmitri," Konstantinos ordered, settling into the leather seat with Rosa still cradled against his chest. "Have Dr. Thorne meet us there immediately." "Of course, Your Majesty." The driver closed the door, and within moments they were gliding through the city streets. Rosa tried to sit up to move to her own seat, but Konstantinos made a low sound of disapproval. "Rest. You nearly fainted." Your body needs to recover." "I can't. I shouldn't be here," Rosa protested weakly. "You were having dinner. I interrupted. I should go home." "You should be in a hospital," Konstantinos corrected, "but human hospitals ask too many questions and move too slowly. My physician is better. Tell me, Rosa Zimmerman, when did you last eat a full meal?" Rosa's silence was answer enough. "And the father of your child? Where is he?" "Gone." The word came out bitter. "Left 2 months ago when I told him I was pregnant. Haven't heard from him since." Konstantinos' jaw tightened, a muscle ticking in his cheek. "A coward, then. How far along are you?" 4 months. Rosa's hand moved instinctively to her small bump, barely visible under her work uniform. "I've been trying to save money, working double shifts when I can. I guess I pushed too hard today." "You guess?" There was something almost like amusement in his tone, though his expression remained serious. "You collapsed serving my table because your body gave out from exhaustion and malnutrition while growing another human being. That is not guessing. That is fact." Rosa felt tears prick her eyes, the combination of stress, exhaustion, and hormones overwhelming her carefully maintained composure. "I didn't know what else to do. The baby needs things. Medical care, clothes, furniture. I don't have family to help. It's just me." "Not anymore." The certainty in those 2 words made Rosa's breath catch. She looked up at Konstantinos, trying to read his expression in the darkness of the car. "What do you mean?" "I mean that I am claiming responsibility for your welfare and that of your child." He said it as though it were the most natural thing in the world, as though vampire kings regularly adopted pregnant waitresses. "You will not return to that restaurant. You will not work yourself to exhaustion. You will be provided for until you and the baby are healthy and stable." "I can't accept charity," Rosa said, even as part of her wanted to weep with relief at the offer. "I don't even know you. It is not charity. It is justice." Konstantinos looked out the window, his profile sharp and perfect in the passing streetlights. "I have lived for over 8 centuries, Rosa Zimmerman. In that time I have seen countless injustices, endured wars and plagues, and the rise and fall of empires. I have learned that power without purpose is hollow. Tonight, I watched a young woman sacrifice her own health for her unborn child, while her employer exploited her desperation. That offends me on multiple levels." "So, this is about your offense?" Rosa wasn't sure where she found the courage to challenge him, but something about Konstantinos made her feel safe enough to speak her mind. He turned back to her, and for the first time, she saw something like approval in those red eyes. "No. This is about you deserving better than what life has given you recently. Consider it a gift, if it makes you feel better. I give you my protection and support, and in return, you accept it gracefully and focus on becoming healthy." The car pulled through a gate that Rosa hadn't even noticed, following a long drive through what appeared to be a private estate. Trees lined the path, their branches creating a canopy overhead. After several minutes, they emerged in front of a house that made Rosa's jaw drop. It wasn't a house. It was a mansion, all Gothic architecture and elegant stonework, looking like something from a period drama except with modern touches like security cameras and discreet lighting. It was beautiful and intimidating in equal measure. "Welcome to Blackthorn Estate," Konstantinos said, noting her expression. "My primary residence when I am in the city." "It's incredible," Rosa whispered. "It serves its purpose." Konstantinos waited for Dmitri to open the door, then carried Rosa out and up the wide steps to the entrance. The doors opened before they reached them, revealing a woman with the same pale hair and skin as Konstantinos, though her eyes were a striking amber rather than red. "Brother," she said, her voice melodic with a hint of an accent Rosa couldn't place. Dmitri called ahead. "Dr. Thorne is already in the East Wing preparing. Who is this?" "This is Rosa Zimmerman. She will be our guest for the foreseeable future. Rosa, this is my sister, Anastasia." Anastasia's amber eyes swept over Rosa with what seemed like genuine concern rather than judgment. "The pregnant woman who collapsed at the Obsidian Hall. Word travels fast in our circles. Come, let us get her comfortable." Rosa was carried through halls that seemed to belong in a museum, past artwork that she suspected was original and priceless, up a grand staircase, and finally into a bedroom that was larger than her entire apartment. The bed was enormous, draped in deep blue linens that looked impossibly soft. Windows stretched from floor to ceiling on one wall, though heavy curtains currently covered them. "For obvious reasons, we keep the curtains drawn," Anastasia said, following Rosa's gaze. "But you are welcome to open them during the day. The sunlight will not hurt us through glass, though we prefer to avoid it." Konstantinos laid Rosa carefully on the bed, stepping back to allow an elderly man with kind eyes and salt and pepper hair to approach. The man carried a medical bag and moved with the confidence of someone who knew exactly what he was doing. "Ms. Zimmerman, I am Dr. Marcus Thorne. I have been the Draven family physician for 40 years. I am fully human, I assure you, and my credentials are impeccable. May I examine you and check on your baby?" Rosa nodded, overwhelmed by everything happening so quickly. Dr. Thorne worked efficiently, taking her vitals, asking questions about her pregnancy, pressing gently on her abdomen. He pulled out what Rosa recognized as a portable ultrasound machine and set it up. "Let us have a look at this little one, Doctor," Thorne said kindly. "This will be cold." The gel was indeed cold, but Rosa forgot about that the moment sound filled the room. The rapid thump-thump-thump of a heartbeat, strong and steady, her baby's heartbeat. "There we are," Dr. Thorne said, turning the screen so Rosa could see the grainy image of a tiny form. "Baby looks good. Strong heartbeat, appropriate size for 4 months. However, Ms. Zimmerman, you are severely anemic and dehydrated. Your blood pressure is dangerously low. When did you last see a doctor?" 2 months ago, Rosa admitted. "I missed my last appointment because I had to work." "Doctor." Thorne's expression grew stern. "That cannot continue. You are growing a human being. That requires resources your body does not currently have. I'm going to set you up with an IV to get some fluids and nutrients into you immediately. Then, I want you on bed rest for at least 3 days, followed by light activity only. No standing for long periods, no heavy lifting, no skipping meals." "I can't afford to miss 3 days of work," Rosa protested. "You are not working at that restaurant anymore," Konstantinos said from where he stood near the window. Rosa had almost forgotten he was there. He stood so still. "Dr. Thorne's orders will be followed completely." "Your Majesty is correct, Doctor," Thorne agreed. "If you continue as you have been, you risk losing this baby. Is that what you want?" The words hit Rosa like cold water. No, of course not. "Then you will rest, eat properly, and let your body heal. I will check on you daily until I am satisfied that both you and baby are out of danger. Doctor." Thorne began setting up an IV line with practiced ease. "I'm also going to prescribe prenatal vitamins and iron supplements. You will take them with food, 3 times a day." Rosa felt tears sliding down her cheeks again. "I can't pay for all this." "You're not being asked to," Anastasia said gently, moving to sit on the edge of the bed. "My brother has claimed you under his protection. That means all your needs are met. Medical care, food, shelter, anything you or your baby require. It is the way of our kind. When we give our word, we honor it absolutely." "But why?" Rosa looked at Konstantinos, needing to understand. "You don't know me. I'm nobody. Why would you do this?" Konstantinos was quiet for a long moment, his red eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her feel like he could see straight through to her soul. "Because when I looked down and saw you falling, something in me responded in a way I have not experienced in centuries. Because you deserve protection and care, and I have the power to provide it. Because it is the right thing to do." He paused, then added more softly, "And because you did not flinch from me when you woke in my arms. You looked at me and saw someone who might help, not a monster to fear. That is rarer than you might think." The honesty in his words made something flutter in Rosa's chest that had nothing to do with fear or gratitude. She looked at this impossibly beautiful, powerful being who had swept into her life like a force of nature and made a decision. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay, I'll stay. I'll rest. I'll let you help. Thank you." Konstantinos inclined his head in acknowledgement, the gesture somehow regal and intimate at once. "Dr. Thorne, ensure she has everything she needs. Anastasia, please have the staff prepare food suitable for a pregnant woman, something nutritious but easy on the stomach. Already being done, Anastasia said with a slight smile. I called ahead while you were bringing her upstairs. Cook is preparing chicken soup, fresh bread, and fruit. Nothing too heavy after going so long without proper food. You are efficient as always, sister. Konstantinos moved toward the door. Rosa, I will leave you in capable hands. Rest. We will speak more tomorrow when you are stronger. Wait, Rosa called out before she could stop herself. He paused, looking back at her. Thank you, really. I don't understand any of this, but thank you. His expression softened in a way that transformed his face from merely beautiful to breathtaking. You are welcome, Rosa Zimmerman. Sleep well. After he left, Dr. Thorne finished setting up the IV and checked her vitals once more. The king is a good man, he said quietly. I know his reputation is fearsome, and certainly he can be terrifying when provoked. But he has a strong sense of honor and justice. You are safe here. I believe you, Rosa said, and was surprised to find she meant it. Over the next 3 days, Rosa discovered what it meant to be under the protection of a vampire king. She was treated like royalty herself, with staff members checking on her regularly but never intrusively. The food was incredible and appeared at regular intervals, always perfectly prepared and nutritious. Dr. Thorne visited twice daily, monitoring both her and the baby, adjusting her medications and supplements as needed. Anastasia stopped by often, bringing books and conversation. She was over 600 years old, she told Rosa, and had lived through eras that Rosa had only read about in history books. Despite the age difference measured in centuries, she was easy to talk to, with a sharp wit and surprisingly modern sensibilities. We adapt or we stagnate, Anastasia explained one afternoon as they sat in Rosa's room, weak sunlight filtering through partially open curtains. I have watched the world change so many times. The ones who cling to the past end up bitter and isolated. My brother understands this better than most. He moves with the times while maintaining the traditions that matter. Is that why he helped me? Rosa asked. Tradition? Partially. Anastasia studied her with those penetrating amber eyes. But there is something else at work here. Konstantinos has not shown this level of personal interest in anyone in a very long time. Decades, perhaps longer. Rosa felt heat rise in her cheeks. I'm just someone who collapsed in his restaurant. You are someone who caught his attention in a way few have managed. Do not underestimate what that means. Anastasia rose gracefully. Now, I have business to attend to. The estate does not run itself, even with excellent staff. But I will return tomorrow. Konstantinos himself visited every evening, always after sunset. He would appear in her doorway, ask permission to enter, and then spend an hour or two simply talking with her. Rosa learned that he loved classical music and modern jazz, that he had learned 17 languages over his lifetime, that he had fought in wars and brokered peace treaties. He spoke of history the way others spoke of yesterday, because for him, it practically was. In turn, Rosa told him about her life, growing up in foster care, never quite fitting in anywhere, working her way through community college before dropping out when money got too tight, the brief relationship with Damien that had resulted in her pregnancy, the fear and determination she felt when she realized she would be raising this baby alone. You are stronger than you know, Konstantinos said on the third night of her stay. He sat in a chair he'd pulled close to the bed, his pale hair gleaming in the lamplight. Survival is not just about strength of body. It requires will, courage, the ability to keep moving forward even when every instinct says to give up. You have that. I didn't feel very strong when I collapsed on your table, Rosa said wryly. Strength is not the absence of vulnerability. It is the act of continuing despite it. He leaned forward slightly. Tell me, Rosa, what would you have done if I had not intervened? If your manager had fired you that night? Rosa was quiet for a moment, thinking. I would have found another job, maybe 2, would have cut more corners, slept less, eaten less, would have done whatever it took to keep going until the baby came. And then I would have figured something out. Because that's what you do. You keep going. You have to. Yes, Konstantinos said softly. That's exactly what you do. That is strength, Rosa. That is the quality I saw in you that night, even unconscious in my arms. The same quality I see now. He stood, moving to the window to look out at the darkened grounds. I need to tell you something. After tomorrow, when Dr. Thorne releases you from bed rest, you will have a decision to make. Rosa's heart beat faster. What kind of decision? You can stay here, in the estate, with private quarters and full support until your baby is born and beyond. You would want for nothing. Or I can set you up in an apartment in the city, with a stipend to cover your expenses and regular check-ins to ensure your well-being. Both options come with my protection, but one offers more independence, while the other offers more security. Why are you giving me choices? Rosa asked. You could just tell me what to do. You're a king. I'm a king of vampires, not humans, and even with my own kind, a wise ruler understands the difference between commanding obedience and earning loyalty. He turned to face her, his red eyes catching the light. I want you to choose, Rosa, because your agency matters. What happens to you should be your decision. Rosa bit her lip, thinking. A week ago, the answer would have been obvious. She would have taken the apartment, the independence, the chance to maintain some control over her life. But now, after 3 days of being cared for, of feeling safe and valued, of evening conversations that made her laugh and think and feel less alone than she had in years, the answer was different. I want to stay, she said quietly. Here, if that's okay. Something flickered in Konstantinos' expression, there and gone too quickly for Rosa to identify. You are certain? Life in a vampire household is not typical. We keep unusual hours. We have visitors that some find unsettling. Our customs are old and sometimes strange. I'm certain. Rosa placed her hand over her stomach, feeling the small bump that grew larger every day. This baby deserves stability and safety. So do I. You're offering that. I'd be stupid to refuse out of pride. Not pride. Self-preservation has merit. Konstantinos moved back to his chair, settling into it with that fluid grace that marked all his movements. Very well. Tomorrow I will have the staff prepare permanent quarters for you. A suite in the east wing overlooking the gardens. You will have privacy, comfort, and everything you need. And Rosa. Yes? I'm glad you're staying. The warmth in his voice made Rosa's chest tight with an emotion she wasn't ready to name. The next morning, Dr. Thorne gave Rosa a clean bill of health, or at least as clean as it could be after 3 days of IV fluids and proper nutrition. You are much improved, he said, removing the needle from her arm. Your color is better, vitals are stable, and baby sounds excellent. However, you are not yet fully recovered. I want you taking it easy for at least another week. Light walking, no strenuous activity, plenty of rest and nutrition. I can do that, Rosa promised. See that you do. I will continue checking on you weekly, more often if any concerns arise. Doctor. Thorne packed up his bag. You have been given a remarkable opportunity here, Ms. Zimmerman. Not many people receive the personal protection of someone like Konstantinos Draven. He is a man of his word. If he has promised to care for you and your child, he will do so unto his last breath. After Dr. Thorne left, Anastasia arrived to help Rosa move to her new quarters. The suite was breathtaking, 3 rooms including a bedroom, sitting area, and private bathroom that was larger than Rosa's old studio apartment. The furniture was antique but comfortable, all dark wood and rich fabrics. Windows looked out over gardens that even in the gray light of late autumn were beautiful. This is too much, Rosa breathed, taking it all in. This is appropriate, Anastasia corrected. You are under the king's protection. That comes with certain standards. Besides, the baby will need space. I took the liberty of ordering a crib and changing table, but they will not arrive for a few weeks. I thought you might want to help choose other items yourself. Rosa felt tears threaten again. She seemed to cry at everything these days, hormones making her more emotional than usual. I don't know how to thank you, any of you. Then do not try. Just be healthy and let that baby grow strong. Anastasia smiled. Now, would you like to see the rest of the estate? You have been confined to bed for days. A walk might do you good. They spent the afternoon touring the grounds. The estate was massive, with the main house, several outbuildings, extensive gardens, and what Anastasia called the secure wing, where she and Konstantinos had their private quarters. There was a library that made Rosa want to weep with joy, thousands of books in dozens of languages spanning floor-to-ceiling shelves. There was a music room with instruments from different eras, an art gallery filled with paintings both ancient and modern, and a conservatory full of plants that thrived even in winter. Konstantinos designed most of this himself, Anastasia explained as they walked through the conservatory. He believes strongly in preserving beauty and knowledge. These gardens, the library, the art collection, all of it represents centuries of careful curation. It's amazing, Rosa said, trailing her fingers over the leaf of an exotic plant she couldn't name. It's like a museum, but lived in. Real. That's exactly what my brother intended. We do not merely exist, Rosa. We live. We experience. We collect. We preserve. Otherwise, what is the point of immortality? That evening, Konstantinos found Rosa in the library, curled up in an oversized chair with a book about pregnancy that someone had thoughtfully placed on the shelf. He entered so quietly, she didn't notice him at first, only looking up when he cleared his throat softly. "I hope I am not disturbing you," he said. "Not at all." Rosa marked her page and set the book aside. "I was just reading about what to expect in the second trimester. Apparently I'm entering the honeymoon phase of pregnancy." "The phase where you feel energetic and well?" Konstantinos moved to sit in a chair across from hers. "That is good. You deserve to feel well." "Thanks to you." Rosa met his eyes, those startling red eyes that she was getting used to. "I've been here less than a week and I already feel like a different person. Stronger. Less afraid." "You were always strong. You were simply lacking support." He was quiet for a moment, then said, "There is something we need to discuss, something I have been considering since the night we met." Rosa's stomach fluttered nervously. "Okay." "You're under my protection, which is significant in vampire society, but it is also somewhat ambiguous in terms of your legal status and rights in the human world. I have consulted with my lawyers and advisors, and there is a solution, if you would consider it." "What kind of solution?" "Marriage." The word hung in the air between them. Rosa stared at Konstantinos, certain she had misheard. "I'm sorry, what?" "A marriage of convenience," Konstantinos clarified, though something in his expression suggested the words cost him effort. "On paper only, if that's what you wish. It would give you legal claim to my name and resources, ensure that no one could challenge your place here or your access to care for yourself and your child. It would also extend certain protections in both human and vampire society that my protection alone cannot fully provide." "You want to marry me?" Rosa said slowly, trying to process this. "To protect me, legally?" "Yes. That's insane." "That is practical." Konstantinos leaned forward, his expression intense. "Rosa, you have no family, no support system, a baby on the way, and no stable income. I am offering you security, legitimacy, and my name. In return, you simply continue living here as you have been. Nothing needs to change unless you wish it to. Except, I'd be married to a vampire king." "Yes?" Rosa laughed, a slightly hysterical sound. "A month ago I was worried about making rent. Now I'm being proposed to by royalty. My life is insane." "Your life is changing," Konstantinos corrected. "Whether that change is insane or simply unexpected remains to be seen. You do not need to answer now. Think about it. Consider the benefits and the drawbacks, but know that my offer is sincere." After he left, Rosa sat in the library for a long time, her mind spinning. Marriage to Konstantinos. It was absurd, it was practical, it was terrifying and tempting in equal measure. Over the next week, Rosa tried to imagine what her life would look like with each choice. If she said no, she would still be here, still protected, but always as a guest. Always someone who could be asked to leave if circumstances changed. If she said yes, she would be family, in a legal sense if nothing else. Her baby would have a name, status, security. But it was more than that, and Rosa had to be honest with herself about it. She was attracted to Konstantinos. How could she not be? He was beautiful, powerful, attentive in ways that made her feel valued. Their evening conversations had become the highlight of her days. She found herself listening for his footsteps, anticipating his arrival, missing him when business kept him away. That was dangerous. This was supposed to be about practical help, about survival. Developing feelings for an immortal vampire king was the kind of complication that ended in heartbreak. But maybe, a small voice whispered, maybe it could be something more. Rosa made her decision on a snowy evening, 10 days after Konstantinos had proposed. She found him in the music room, sitting at a grand piano, his fingers moving over the keys with the kind of skill that came from centuries of practice. The music was beautiful and melancholy, something classical that Rosa didn't recognize. She waited until he finished, not wanting to interrupt. When the last notes faded, he looked up and saw her standing in the doorway. "Rosa, come in." She moved into the room, settling on a couch near the piano. "That was beautiful. What was it?" "Chopin, Nocturne in E-flat major. I knew him, actually. Temperamental genius, but brilliant." Konstantinos closed the piano lid carefully. "You look like you have something on your mind." "I do." Rosa took a breath, steadying herself. "I've been thinking about your proposal, the marriage. And I want to understand what it would really mean. Not the legal stuff, I get that, but what would it mean for us, for how we live? Would anything change?" Konstantinos was quiet for a long moment, his expression thoughtful. "That would depend on what you wanted. At minimum, nothing would change. We would continue as we are, you and your suite, me and mine, two people cohabiting politely. At maximum," he paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. "At maximum, it could become something real, a true partnership, but that would require both of us to choose it, consciously and completely." "And what do you want?" Rosa asked softly. His red eyes met hers with an intensity that stole her breath. "I want you to be safe and cared for. I want your child to have every advantage. I want to continue our evening conversations and watch you grow stronger. Beyond that, I want whatever you are comfortable with. I will not push, Rosa. You have had enough of men who take without asking." The consideration in those words, the respect, made Rosa's decision crystallize. "I'll marry you," she said, "on one condition." "Name it." "We stay honest with each other. If things change, if feelings develop or don't develop, if this becomes complicated, we talk about it. No secrets, no assumptions. Can you promise me that?" "I can, and I do." Konstantinos rose from the piano bench and moved to kneel before her, taking her hand gently in his. His skin was cool but not cold, smooth and strong. "Rosa Zimmerman, will you do me the honor of becoming my wife, in name and in law, with honesty and respect as our foundation?" "Yes," Rosa whispered. "Yes, I will." His smile transformed his face, making him look younger somehow, less remote. "Then we will make the arrangements. A simple ceremony, I think. No need for spectacle. Can Anastasia be there? And Dr. Thorne?" "Of course, anyone you wish." He stood, drawing her gently to her feet. "And Rosa, thank you for trusting me with this." "Thank you for asking," she replied. The wedding took place a week later in the estate's conservatory, surrounded by flowering plants that shouldn't have been blooming in December, but somehow were. The officiant was a vampire elder who had known Konstantinos for centuries, a woman named Serafina, with silver hair and violet eyes, who spoke the words of the ceremony with gravity and warmth. Rosa wore a simple ivory dress that Anastasia had helped her pick out, something that accommodated her growing belly while still being elegant. Konstantinos wore black, as always, but with a silver waistcoat that brought out the paleness of his hair. There were only a handful of witnesses: Anastasia, Dr. Thorne, Dmitri the driver, and a few other members of the household staff who had been with the Draven family for years. It was intimate and strange, and somehow perfect. When Konstantinos slipped the ring onto Rosa's finger, a band of white gold with small diamonds that caught the light, she felt tears slip down her cheeks. Happy tears this time, or at least less complicated ones. "I promise to honor and protect you," Konstantinos said softly, holding her hand. "To provide for you and yours, to be honest and true, for as long as you will have me." "I promise to trust you and communicate with you," Rosa replied, the words they had written together the night before. "To be honest about my needs and feelings, to build something real with you, for as long as we both shall choose. Then by the power vested in me by the Council of Elders, I declare you bound in marriage, recognized by both our kinds, until such time as death or mutual dissolution parts you. Serafina smiled. You may seal this bond. Konstantinos cupped Rosa's face gently in his hands and kissed her, soft and careful and sweet. It was her first kiss in months, and the first that had ever made her feel truly cherished. When they parted, his red eyes were warm. Hello, wife, he murmured. Hello, husband, Rosa replied, testing the word. It felt strange and right all at once. The small reception afterward was warm and welcoming. Cook had prepared a feast, all foods appropriate for a pregnant woman, but elevated to restaurant quality. There was sparkling cider for Rosa and blood wine for the vampires, served in crystal glasses. Anastasia gave a toast about new beginnings and unexpected joys. Dr. Thorne congratulated them both and gave Rosa a clean bill of health in front of everyone, announcing that the baby was thriving. As the evening wound down and the small gathering dispersed, Konstantinos found Rosa standing by the windows of the conservatory, looking out at the snow-covered gardens lit by artfully placed lanterns. Having regrets already? He asked, coming to stand beside her. No, Rosa said honestly. Just thinking about how much my life has changed in 3 weeks. It's surreal. Change often is. He followed her gaze out to the gardens. Rosa, I want to be clear about tonight. You will return to your suite and I to mine. There are no expectations beyond what we have already discussed. This marriage is whatever we make it, nothing more or less. Rosa appreciated the clarification, even as part of her felt a small pang of disappointment. Thank you for saying that, though I admit I'm not entirely sure what I expected. Whatever you expected is valid. Konstantinos turned to face her fully. I will say this, however. I'm glad you are here. Glad you chose to stay, chose to marry me. You have brought something into this house that has been missing for longer than I care to admit. What's that? Life, he said simply. Warmth. The sense that we are not merely existing in amber, preserved and unchanging, but actually living with purpose. Rosa felt her cheeks flush with pleasure at the compliment. You give me too much credit. I'm just trying to survive and keep my baby safe. You're doing much more than that. You are brave and honest and refreshingly direct. Do not minimize your own qualities. He reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear in a gesture that felt both tender and testing, as if he was seeing how much contact she was comfortable with. Now, you should rest. It has been a long day, and Dr. Thorne would have my head if I let you overexert yourself. Konstantinos, Rosa said as he turned to leave. Yes? Thank you for all of this. For everything. His smile was soft and genuine. You are most welcome, Rosa. Good night. Good night. The next few weeks fell into a comfortable pattern. Rosa's pregnancy progressed well, her belly growing round and firm as the baby developed. Dr. Thorne's weekly visits became a constant, and he was pleased with both her progress and her health markers. The sweet Anastasia had prepared gained more baby items as time went on, a beautiful wooden crib, a changing table, tiny clothes that made Rosa's heart squeeze. Konstantinos remained attentive but respectful of boundaries. Their evening conversations continued, growing longer and more personal. Rosa learned about his turning, how he had been a warrior in the Byzantine Empire before a vampire elder named Tiberius had offered him a choice. Die from battle wounds or accept immortality. He had chosen immortality and never regretted it, though he admitted there had been dark periods where the weight of endless years had felt crushing. In turn, Rosa told him about her childhood in the foster system, moving from home to home, never quite finding a place where she fit. About her dreams of becoming a teacher before financial reality made college impossible. About Damien, who had seemed charming at first, but revealed himself to be selfish and immature when real responsibility appeared. He was a fool, Konstantinos said one evening as they sat in the library together. Rosa was curled up in her favorite chair while Konstantinos occupied the one across from her, a book in his hands that he hadn't looked at in 20 minutes. To have you and walk away is unconscionable. He wasn't ready to be a father, Rosa said, trying to be fair even though Damien's abandonment still hurt. Neither of us planned this. Perhaps not, but you rose to the occasion. He ran. That speaks to character, Rosa. Yours is exceptional. His is lacking. Konstantinos set his book aside. The child you carry deserves better than a father who could not be bothered to stay. Are you offering? The words came out before Rosa could stop them, teasing but with an edge of seriousness. Konstantinos went very still. I would be honored to fill that role, if you would permit it. I cannot sire children, not anymore, not as a vampire. But I can protect this child, provide for them, guide them. If you would allow me that privilege, I would cherish it. Rosa felt something crack open in her chest, warmth flooding through her. You really mean that? I never say anything I do not mean. His red eyes were intent on her face. I have grown attached to you, Rosa, to the idea of you and your child here, as part of my household and my life. If that is something you want as well, I would like to make it official. Not just a legal arrangement, but a real commitment. I want that, Rosa whispered. I want that so much. He crossed to her chair in a movement too fast for human eyes to track, kneeling before her the way he had when he proposed. Then it is decided. This child will be mine in all ways that matter. I will be their father, their protector, their guide. And you, Rosa, you are not just my wife in name. You are my partner, my family. Rosa cupped his face in her hands, marveling at the cool smoothness of his skin, the sharp, perfect lines of his features. How did I get so lucky? Luck had nothing to do with it. You survived and endured until our paths crossed. The rest is simply us choosing each other, again and again. He turned his head to press a kiss to her palm. I care for you, Rosa, more than I anticipated, more than is perhaps wise. Why wouldn't it be wise? Because I am vampire and you are human, because I will watch you age while I remain unchanged, because loving someone mortal means accepting eventual loss. His voice was raw with honesty. But I find I do not care about wisdom. I care about you. I care about you too, Rosa said, her voice shaking. So much it scares me sometimes. You've become so important to me. Then we are both frightened and both brave. Konstantinos rose, drawing her up with him. Come, let me hold you properly. He wrapped his arms around her, careful of her pregnant belly, and Rosa sank into his embrace. He was cool and solid and strong, and being held by him felt like the safest place in the world. They stood like that for a long time, just holding each other, letting the moment speak what words couldn't quite capture. That night marked a shift in their relationship. They were still careful, still respectful of boundaries, but there was a new openness between them. Konstantinos began spending more time in Rosa's suite, sitting with her in the evenings, sometimes reading aloud to her from books in languages she didn't speak, translating as he went. Rosa started seeking him out more during the day, finding him in his study or the music room, content to just be near him while he worked. Anastasia watched their growing closeness with knowing eyes. I told you he was interested, she said to Rosa one afternoon over tea. My brother is not one to do things halfway. When he cares deeply. I'm starting to realize that, Rosa admitted. It's overwhelming sometimes. Everything has happened so fast. Fast by human standards, perhaps. By ours, this is a cautious courtship. Anastasia smiled. But I understand your meaning. For what it is worth, I approve. You are good for him, Rosa. You remind him how to live, not just exist. He's good for me, too, Rosa said softly, her hand on her belly where the baby was starting to move regularly now. For us. As her due date approached, Rosa found herself both excited and terrified. She had read all the books, attended the private childbirth classes that Dr. Thorne arranged at the estate, prepared the nursery until every detail was perfect. But the reality of becoming a mother, of being responsible for another life, still felt enormous. Konstantinos seemed to sense her anxiety. One evening in her 8th month, when Rosa was too uncomfortable to sleep and pacing her suite, he appeared at her door. I heard you moving around, he said. May I come in? Please, Rosa said gratefully. He entered, and she noticed he carried something, a small wooden box inlaid with silver. I have something for you. For the baby. Rosa sat on the couch, curious. Konstantinos settled beside her and opened the box, revealing a delicate silver pendant on a chain. The pendant was worked in an intricate pattern that seemed to shimmer in the light. This is a protection charm, Konstantinos explained. Very old magic, from before my time even. It has been in my family for over 1,000 years. It protects the wearer from harm, particularly harm of a supernatural nature. He lifted the necklace carefully. I want your child to have it. To be protected always. Rosa felt tears well up. Konstantinos, that's too much. If it's a family heirloom, then it belongs with family, which you are, both of you. He fastened the necklace around her neck, the silver warm from his hands. There. It will transfer to the baby when they are born. Dr. Thorne knows how to perform the ritual. Thank you, Rosa whispered, touching the pendant. For this, for everything, for wanting to be this baby's father. It is not a want, it is a certainty. Konstantinos placed his hand over hers on her belly, and as if in response the baby kicked. His eyes widened. Was that was your son or daughter saying hello, Rosa said with a laugh. The wonder on Konstantinos' face was something Rosa knew she would remember forever. Extraordinary, he breathed. There is a person in there, a whole new life. A life that's going to be very spoiled if you keep looking like that, Rosa teased gently. You're already completely in love. Completely, Konstantinos agreed without shame, as I am with their mother. Rosa's breath caught. They had danced around the word, implied it, shown it in actions, but never said it directly. You love me? I love you, Konstantinos confirmed, his red eyes locked on hers. I love your strength and your honesty, and the way you face the world with courage despite everything you have endured. I love your laugh and your terrible taste in modern television and the way you hum without realizing it when you are reading. I love you, Rosa Draven, wholly and completely. I love you too, Rosa said, the words spilling out. I think I have for weeks, but I was afraid to say it, afraid it was too soon or too complicated or that you would think I was just grateful. I would never think that. Konstantinos cupped her face gently. May I kiss you properly? Not the chaste kiss of our wedding, but a real kiss. Yes, Rosa breathed. Please. He kissed her softly at first, careful and sweet, but when Rosa made a small sound of pleasure and leaned into him, the kiss deepened. His cool mouth moved against hers with centuries of skill, his hands gentle on her face, in her hair. Rosa felt like she was melting, like every nerve ending was alight. When they finally parted, both were breathing hard. Rosa couldn't find words. Overdue, Konstantinos finished. We should have been doing that for weeks. Well, we can make up for lost time, Rosa said, pulling him back for another kiss. They spent the rest of the night on her couch, kissing and talking and simply being together. Konstantinos told her things he had never told anyone, fears and hopes and memories from centuries past. Rosa shared her dreams for the future, for their baby, for the family they were building together. When dawn approached and Konstantinos had to retire to his quarters, Rosa didn't want to let him go. Stay, she whispered, just until the sun rises, please. I would stay forever if I could, Konstantinos said, kissing her forehead. But the sun will not be kind even indoors. I must go, but I will return as soon as night falls, I promise. I'll be waiting. The final weeks of Rosa's pregnancy passed in a blur of preparation and anticipation. Her suite was taken over by baby supplies, and she found herself constantly rearranging things, nesting instincts in full force. Konstantinos was patient with her mood swings and physical discomfort, bringing her things she needed before she could ask, rubbing her aching feet, reading to her when she couldn't sleep. Dr. Thorne assured her everything was progressing normally and that the baby was healthy and strong. Any day now, he said during his final checkup before the due date. Have your bag ready. I will be on call around the clock. Rosa went into labor on a Tuesday night, 3 days before her official due date. The first contraction hit while she was having dinner in her suite, strong enough to make her gasp. Konstantinos was there immediately, having sensed something was wrong with that supernatural awareness of his. Rosa, what is it? I think the baby's coming. Another contraction rolled through her, and Rosa gripped the table edge. Yeah, definitely coming. Konstantinos moved into action with calm efficiency. He called Dr. Thorne, who arrived within 20 minutes with 2 midwives and all his equipment. He stayed by Rosa's side, holding her hand, talking her through contractions, never once flinching, even though her grip was strong enough to hurt a human. Labor was long and hard, 12 hours that felt like an eternity. Rosa cried and cursed and at one point told Konstantinos she was never doing this again, to which he replied that was entirely her decision and he would support her either way. Dr. Thorne and the midwives were calm and professional, monitoring both Rosa and the baby carefully. Finally, as dawn approached and the world outside began to lighten, Rosa felt the overwhelming urge to push. The midwives encouraged her, and Konstantinos stayed right beside her, cool hand gripping hers, voice steady and sure. "You can do this," he told her. "You are the strongest person I have ever known. Bring our child into the world, Rosa. I am here. I will not leave." With a final push and a cry that came from somewhere deep inside her, Rosa felt the baby slide free. There was a moment of terrifying silence, and then the most beautiful sound in the world. A baby's first cry. "It's a girl, Doctor," Thorne announced, laying the squalling, red-faced infant on Rosa's chest. "A healthy baby girl." Rosa looked down at her daughter through tears of exhaustion and joy. She was perfect, tiny and wrinkled, and screaming her displeasure at the world, but absolutely perfect. "Hi, baby," Rosa whispered. "Hi, little one. We've been waiting for you." Konstantinos stared at the baby with an expression of such profound wonder that Rosa's heart cracked open all over again. "She is beautiful," he breathed. "Perfect." "Do you want to hold her?" Rosa asked. "May I?" "Of course." One of the midwives helped transfer the baby to Konstantinos' arms after cutting the cord and doing initial checks. He held her with surprising confidence for someone who claimed to have limited experience with infants, supporting her head carefully, looking down at her with absolute adoration. "Hello, little one," he murmured. "Welcome to the world. I am your father, and I will protect you and love you for all of my days. You are safe, you are cherished, you are home." The baby, who had been crying, quieted at the sound of his voice, her tiny eyes trying to focus on his face. Rosa watched them together, her heart so full it felt like it might burst. "What should we name her?" Konstantinos asked, not taking his eyes off the baby. Rosa had been thinking about this for weeks. "I was thinking Lydia Anastasia Draven, if that's okay with you." "Lydia," Konstantinos repeated, testing the name. "After no one in particular, but because you like how it sounds. Because it means beautiful one in Greek. And Anastasia for your sister, who has been so kind to me. Anastasia will be honored, and Lydia is perfect." He finally looked up at Rosa, his red eyes bright. "You are amazing. Thank you for this gift. For her. For choosing to share your life with me." "Thank you for being the kind of man worth choosing," Rosa replied. Dr. Thorne and the midwives worked around them, cleaning up, checking Rosa's vitals, ensuring everything was as it should be. Finally, Dr. Thorne approached with the silver pendant Konstantinos had given Rosa weeks earlier. "Are you ready for the transfer ritual?" he asked. "Yes," Konstantinos said, bringing Lydia back to Rosa's arms. "Show me what to do." The ritual was simple but meaningful. Dr. Thorne placed the pendant against Lydia's tiny chest, while Konstantinos spoke words in a language Rosa didn't recognize, something ancient and full of power. The silver glowed softly for a moment, then settled. When Dr. Thorne lifted it away, a faint mark remained on Lydia's skin, barely visible, in the shape of the pendant's pattern. "She is protected," Dr. Thorne announced. "No supernatural creature can harm her while she bears this mark. It will fade as she grows, but the protection will remain until she reaches adulthood." "Thank you," Konstantinos said quietly. As the morning wore on and the household began to wake, news of Lydia's birth spread quickly. Anastasia arrived first, taking one look at the baby and bursting into tears of joy. "She is exquisite," she declared. "And you named her after me? I am deeply honored, little brother." "You have been a sister to Rosa as much as to me," Konstantinos said. It seemed fitting. Over the next few days, Rosa recovered in her suite with Lydia, while Konstantinos barely left their side. He was surprisingly good with the baby, changing diapers without complaint, walking her when she fussed, holding her for hours so Rosa could sleep. Dr. Thorne visited daily, pronouncing both mother and baby healthy. One evening, when Lydia was a week old, Rosa woke from a nap to find Konstantinos sitting in the rocking chair they'd placed by the window, Lydia asleep on his chest. He was humming softly, something in that ancient language he sometimes spoke, and looking down at the baby with such love that Rosa felt her eyes well up. "You're going to be an amazing father," she said softly. Konstantinos looked up, smiling. "I am going to try. She deserves the best. She has it. Rosa got carefully out of bed and moved to sit on the ottoman near the rocking chair. Konstantinos, I need to tell you something. His expression grew serious. What is it? When you first brought me here, when you proposed this arrangement, I never imagined it would become this. I thought I was accepting help for survival. But this is so much more than that. You have given me a family, a home, love. You have given Lydia a father who adores her. I need you to know how grateful I am, how much I love you. Rosa, Konstantinos reached out with his free hand, taking hers. You do not need to thank me. Loving you and Lydia is not a burden or a duty. It is the greatest privilege of my very long life. You have given me purpose again, reminded me why immortality can be a gift rather than a curse. Every moment with you both is precious. Even the 3 a.m. diaper changes, Rosa teased. Especially those, Konstantinos said with a laugh, though I admit I did not expect how much one tiny human could produce. They sat together in comfortable silence, watching Lydia sleep until Rosa eventually spoke again. What happens now? I mean, long term. She's going to grow up in a vampire household. That's not exactly normal. Normal is overrated, Konstantinos said. She will grow up loved and protected, with the best education we can provide and exposure to both human and supernatural worlds. When she is old enough, we will explain everything to her. She can choose her own path, make her own decisions about how much she wants to be involved in vampire society. And what about more children? Do you want more? Konstantinos was quiet for a moment. I would love whatever family we build together. If you want more children, I would be honored to raise them. If Lydia is your only, I will love her enough for 10. What matters is what you want, Rosa. Your body, your choice. I think I might want more, Rosa admitted. Maybe not right away, but someday. A little brother or sister for Lydia. Is that okay? That's more than okay. Konstantinos leaned forward, careful not to disturb the sleeping baby, and kissed Rosa softly. We have time. We can take it slow, let you recover, see what feels right. You know I'm going to age, right? Rosa said, voicing the concern that had been nagging at her. In 20 years, I'll be middle-aged, and you'll still look like this. In 40 years, I'll be old. Doesn't that bother you? No. The certainty in his voice was absolute. Rosa, I have lived 800 years. I have seen empires rise and fall, watched the world change in ways that would have seemed like magic to my younger self. The one constant is that beauty fades and time marches forward. But love, real love, transcends physical form. I will love you when your hair turns gray and your skin wrinkles. I will love you when your body grows frail and your movements slow. And when your time comes to leave this world, I will mourn you for the rest of my days. But I will never regret loving you. Rosa wiped the tears that had started falling. You can't say things like that. My hormones are still all over the place. You'll make me cry. Then cry, Konstantinos said gently. Tears are not weakness. They are the price of feeling deeply. Lydia stirred in his arms, making small baby noises. Rosa reached for her and Konstantinos transferred her carefully. She settled at Rosa's breast to nurse, her tiny hand curling around Rosa's finger. This is everything, Rosa whispered, looking down at her daughter. This moment, this family, it's everything I never knew I needed. For me as well, Konstantinos agreed. The months that followed were a blur of baby milestones and deepening love. Lydia grew from a tiny newborn into a chubby, happy infant with her mother's dark hair and eyes that seemed to shift between brown and a lighter amber, depending on the light. She adored Konstantinos, lighting up whenever he entered the room, reaching for him with chubby hands. Rosa healed and regained her strength, helped by excellent nutrition and Dr. Thorne's continued monitoring. She and Konstantinos grew closer, their relationship deepening from affection to something profound and unshakable. They were partners in every sense, making decisions together, supporting each other, building a life. The supernatural community took note of the Vampire King's human wife and half-human daughter. Some were skeptical, others intrigued, but none were foolish enough to challenge Konstantinos' choice. He made it clear that his family was off-limits, protected by his power and authority absolutely. On Lydia's first birthday, they held a small celebration at the estate. Anastasia helped plan it, and even some of Konstantinos' vampire associates attended, bringing gifts and good wishes. Rosa watched her daughter smash a cake enthusiastically, while Konstantinos looked on with besotted pride and thought about how much had changed in just over a year. She had gone from a desperate waitress collapsing from exhaustion to a woman with a family, security, and love. She had found home in the most unexpected place with the most unlikely person. That evening, after Lydia was asleep and the guests had departed, Rosa found Konstantinos in the music room. He was playing something soft and sweet on the piano, and she recognized it as a piece he had composed himself, one he'd told her was about new beginnings. "Hey," she said softly. He looked up, smiling. "Hey yourself. Good party?" "The best." Rosa moved to sit beside him on the piano bench. "I was thinking about that night, the night I collapsed in the Obsidian Hall." "I think about it often," Konstantinos admitted. "It seems impossible that it was only a year ago. It feels like you have been part of my life forever." "In a way, maybe I have been. Maybe we were always meant to find each other, one way or another." "I like that idea." Konstantinos turned on the bench to face her fully. "Rosa, I want to ask you something." "Okay?" "Our marriage began as a legal arrangement, a way to protect you and give you security. But it has become so much more. I love you as my wife in truth, not just on paper. I want to renew our vows, make promises to each other that reflect what we have actually built. Would you marry me again, knowing what you know now, choosing me not out of necessity, but out of love?" Rosa felt tears gather but didn't try to stop them. "Yes, yes, absolutely yes. I choose you, Konstantinos. I choose this life, this family. I choose you every day and I always will. Then we will have another ceremony, whenever you wish. Just us and our family, speaking words that come from the heart." He kissed her softly. "I love you, Rosa Draven. Thank you for crashing into my life and changing everything." "Thank you for catching me when I fell," Rosa replied, "in every possible way." They renewed their vows a month later, speaking promises of eternal love and partnership in the same conservatory where they had first married. This time, Lydia was there, dressed in a tiny white dress and held by Anastasia, babbling happily through the ceremony. This time, when Konstantinos kissed Rosa, it was full of passion and promise and the certainty of years together ahead. The years that followed were full and rich. Rosa and Konstantinos welcomed a son 3 years after Lydia, a boy they named Marcus after Dr. Thorne, who had become as much family as physician. Marcus had his father's pale coloring and his mother's warmth, a happy child who adored his big sister. Rosa watched her children grow up in a household that blended human and vampire culture seamlessly. They learned history from people who had lived it, studied languages from native speakers who were centuries old, and understood from an early age that the world was bigger and stranger than most people knew. Konstantinos was a devoted father, patient and loving and protective. He taught Lydia to read in 4 languages before she started human school. He stayed up late with Marcus during his colicky phase, walking him through the halls of the estate while humming ancient lullabies. He attended school plays and parent-teacher conferences and birthday parties with the same intensity he brought to ruling his territory. Rosa found her own place in the supernatural community, respected not just as the king's wife, but as a person in her own right. She started a charitable foundation to help pregnant women in need, using Konstantinos' resources to provide medical care, housing, and support. She never forgot what it felt like to be desperate and alone, and she made sure others didn't have to feel that way. As the children grew and the years passed, Rosa did begin to show her age. Gray appeared in her dark hair, lines formed around her eyes and mouth. Her body changed in the way human bodies do, softening and slowing. Konstantinos never treated her differently, never looked at her with anything but love and desire. "You are more beautiful now than the day I met you," he told her on their 10th anniversary. They were in their bedroom, the suite they now shared, Rosa's old rooms having been converted into a playroom for the children. "You wear your years like badges of honor. Every line, every gray hair tells the story of a life well lived." "You're just saying that because you're stuck with me," Rosa teased. "I am saying it because it is true, and I am not stuck with you. I am blessed by you. Every day." He kissed her deeply, his cool hands gentle on her warming skin. When Rosa was 45 and Konstantinos had not aged a day in the 15 years they had been together, they had to have a difficult conversation with the children. Lydia was 14, smart and observant, and Marcus was 11. They had questions about why their father never aged, why some of his friends avoided daylight, why there were rules about certain visitors to the estate. Rosa and Konstantinos sat them down in the library, the place where so much of their own relationship had unfolded, and told them the truth about vampires, about their father's nature, about the supernatural world that existed alongside the human one. The children took it remarkably well, probably because they had been living in that world their whole lives without realizing it. Lydia had 100 questions, wanting to know everything about vampire society and history. Marcus was more worried about whether his father was in danger, if there were vampire hunters, if their family was safe. "We are always safe," Konstantinos assured them. "I am very old and very powerful, and our family is protected by ancient magic and modern security. Nothing will harm you." "Are we vampires too?" Lydia asked. "No," Rosa said. "You are human, both of you. Vampires cannot have children the way humans do. Your father may be a vampire, but you are fully human." "Could we become vampires, if we wanted to?" Lydia pressed. Konstantinos and Rosa exchanged glances. They had discussed this possibility, knowing it might come up. When you are adults," Konstantinos said carefully, "if you choose it, we can discuss it. But it is not a decision to be made lightly. Immortality is not the gift it seems. It comes with costs and complications. For now, focus on being young and human and alive in all the ways that means." The conversation marked a new chapter in their family, one where the children were aware of their unusual circumstances and learning to navigate them. Lydia became fascinated with vampire history and culture, often spending evenings with Anastasia learning about the old ways. Marcus was more interested in the security and protection aspects, eventually training with Dmitri in defensive techniques. Rosa watched her children grow into young adults with pride and occasional terror. Parenting was never easy, but parenting in a world that included vampires and magic added extra complications. Yet somehow, they made it work. On their 20th anniversary, Konstantinos gave Rosa a gift that took her breath away. It was a book, leather-bound and beautiful, and when she opened it, she saw it was their story, written in Konstantinos's elegant handwriting. "I wanted to preserve it," he explained as they sat together in their bedroom, moonlight streaming through the windows. "Every detail of how we met, how we fell in love, how we built this family, so that no matter what happens, our story will endure." Rosa read through pages filled with memories. Some she had forgotten, others she remembered vividly. The night they met, their first real conversation, the wedding, Lydia's birth. 1,000 moments that had seemed small at the time but added up to a life. "This is beautiful," she whispered, wiping at tears. "Thank you." "Thank you," Konstantinos replied, pulling her close, "for choosing me, for building this life with me, for every day of the last 20 years. "Here's to 20 more," Rosa said, kissing him, "and 20 after that, and as many as we are given." The years continued to pass. Rosa grew older, her body slowing further, her hair turning fully silver. She needed reading glasses and moved a bit more carefully, but her mind stayed sharp and her spirit remained strong. The children graduated from high school, attended college, built their own lives while remaining connected to the family. Lydia, to no one's surprise, pursued a degree in ancient history and eventually joined her father in managing some of the vampire community's affairs. She had a gift for diplomacy and a deep understanding of both human and vampire cultures. Marcus became a doctor, inspired by Dr. Thorne, who had passed away peacefully at 96, having lived a full life as part of the Draven household. Rosa's charitable foundation grew and thrived, helping thousands of women and children over the decades. She became a respected figure in both human and supernatural philanthropy circles, known for her compassion and effectiveness. Through it all, Konstantinos remained constant. He aged not at all, still looking exactly as he had the night Rosa had collapsed at his table. Yet he never made her feel less for her aging, never looked at younger women with interest, never wavered in his devotion. "You are my heart," he told her on their 30th anniversary, holding her close in their bed. You have been since the moment I looked down and saw you falling. You will be until the end of my days, however many centuries that may be." "I love you," Rosa said simply. "I love you so much it hurts sometimes." "I know the feeling. It is called being truly alive." Rosa lived to be 83 years old, a good long life by any measure. She died peacefully in her sleep with Konstantinos holding her hand, surrounded by her children and grandchildren, 3 from Lydia and 2 from Marcus. She had no regrets, no fear. She had lived fully and loved deeply and built something beautiful. Konstantinos mourned her with a grief that shook the foundations of the estate. For weeks he barely left their bedroom, holding her belongings, reading and rereading the book of their life together. Anastasia stayed close, offering what comfort she could, but they all knew that some losses could not be softened. Eventually, slowly, Konstantinos began to emerge. He threw himself into his work, into caring for his children and grandchildren, into preserving Rosa's legacy through her foundation. He never loved another, never took another wife. Rosa had been his one great love, and he would honor that until the end of his days. On what would have been their 50th anniversary, Konstantinos stood in the conservatory where they had married twice, surrounded by Rosa's favorite flowers that he had cultivated obsessively. He held the silver pendant that had protected Lydia, that Rosa had worn for so many years, and spoke to the empty air. "Thank you, my love, for giving me the greatest decades of my existence. Thank you for choosing me, for loving me, for building a family with me. You taught me that immortality means nothing without purpose, that power is hollow without compassion, that existing is not the same as living. You made me truly alive." A breeze stirred through the conservatory, carrying the scent of jasmine and something that might have been Rosa's perfume. Konstantinos smiled through his tears. "Until I see you again, whenever that may be, I will honor you by living as you taught me, fully, deeply, with love and purpose. You were my miracle, Rosa Zimmerman Draven, and I will carry you in my heart for all eternity." The pendant warmed in his hand, glowing softly for just a moment, and Konstantinos knew that somehow, somewhere, Rosa heard him. Their love had transcended death itself, becoming something that would last truly forever. Years later, when their great-grandchildren asked about the beautiful woman in the paintings that hung throughout the estate, Konstantinos would tell them the story. About the waitress who collapsed serving his table, about the words that shocked everyone, about choosing each other again and again until parting was inevitable, but love remained eternal. "She was the best of us," he would say, looking at Rosa's portrait with eyes that still held all the love of their decades together. "She reminded us all what it means to be truly human, truly alive, and she will never be forgotten." And she wasn't. Rosa's legacy lived on in her foundation, in her descendants, in the changes she brought to how vampires and humans interacted, in the family she built with an immortal king who learned what forever really meant the day she fell into his arms. Their love story became legend in supernatural circles, told and retold, a reminder that sometimes the most extraordinary love stories begin in the most ordinary moments. A waitress, a vampire king, a collapse that led to catching, catching that led to caring, caring that led to love, and love that lasted beyond death, beyond time, beyond everything. That was how Rosa Zimmerman changed the world, one collapsed moment at a time, by teaching an ancient king how to live again, by building a family from nothing, by proving that love knows no boundaries, not between human and vampire, not between mortal and immortal, not even between life and death. She was extraordinary, and she was deeply, eternally loved. That was enough. That was everything. That was